All right. So we're going to look at a couple options for creating your own web maps that as TCU students you have access to for free. So I'll go ahead and share my screen again. And if you've taken Intro GIS, the first one will be somewhat familiar with you. That's ArcGIS Online. So ArcGIS Online is the online interface for ESRI, the world's largest GIS software and services company. And if you have not taken a GIS class before and you need to sign up and you want to do this for free, go to the sign in page just like you started. It's arcgis.com. It'll take you to this page. You go to sign in. Obviously, I have an account, but if you needed to create an account, you go down here to create an account. And then you go to create a free public account. You don't need to start a free trial. As a TCU student, you have access to our university account, which lets you use any of the services on ArcGIS Online for free, at least until you graduate. And you actually can do quite a bit with just a free public account on here as well. So you go through this process, name, email. If you want to be part of the TCU organization, you have to use your TCU email address. You accept it, and it's like signing up for anything else you've ever signed up for online. I'll go ahead and sign in. And if you are not connected to the TCU organization, it's going to look a little bit different for you. In fact, you're not going to see this because I'm an administrator and I get to look at more stuff like this, like how many credits we have, how many credits we've used, so on. It's fun because that blip is me. But when you get here, you'll end up at a page that'll look something like this. It probably won't say TCU, it'll say like Esri, but it'll be a cool base map like that. And if you want to create a map, you click on map, and I'll come back to that here in a moment. And once you've saved maps, you'll have this content tab where everything you've ever made will show up here. All right. So let's go back to create a map, and I'll just show you how easy it is to make a map that you could then embed in a website. Right. So the first thing I'll do is just show, we'll do a search for layers. And if we want to look for, Esri has something called the Living Atlas, which is sort of their attempt at mapping the world in an ongoing way. So updating things regularly. So if we want to do, let's just say population map. We search population, and they've got USA population density for the US, world population density estimates for 2016. And you can filter this in a variety of ways if you want. Forecasted growth from 2021 to 2026. Daytime population, that's an interesting one. This is population of where people are working rather than their actual places of residence. So we'll add that one just for fun. And you can see it's been visualized in an kind of interesting way. You got these sort of inverted squares, and they're proportional to number of people, and it's scaled. So if we zoom in, that's at the state level, which actually isn't that useful because people very rarely work and live in different places. But now you can get down to sub-county. Now we're looking at census tracts. And I'm curious what these symbols mean. So I can go to the legend and see that the areas in blue are predominantly nighttime population and the areas in red are predominantly daytime population. So work areas versus residences. And then the sum of all the population at each time is based on this. So because some people live in the places where there's a lot of work, get those, they get combined together. The other thing I wanted to show you all real quickly is adding a layer from a file. You can upload a couple different kinds of files. I have a comma separated value spreadsheet, which here is the CSV. You can have a zipped shapefile. So shapefile is a combination of at least 3 and usually 5 related files that do the geometry plus a database file and so on. You can have that zipped and upload it. You can use GPX, which is what, if you say like export, you like a running app and export that data, it usually comes as GPX, or a GeoJSON, which is an open data standard format for simple geographic features. It's basically a JSON file, JavaScript, object, something. But the geo part means that it is going to carry geometries as well, in which the JSON lists will be applied. Anyway, for the forward cultural districts layer, it's a CSV. And because I only have addresses in here and I don't have latitude and longitude coordinates, I have to geocode this. And you do need to be connected to the TCU organizational account if you want to geocode something with addresses in ArcGIS Online. But if you had latitude and longitude coordinates for the points that you wanted, you wouldn't need to have that access. It'll plot latitude and longitude for you all by itself. So in geocoding, it's saying street is address, city, city, state, state, zip, zip, and so on. And that's what it uses to locate this. It'll use the Esri World Geocoder to add this layer. And so this is a layer of attractions in the Fort Worth Cultural District and their relative locations. That we have types that we could do this by. So we could do it by type. If you wanted to just have a single symbol, you could do this way. You can then format that symbol to be a variety of different things, shapes, general infrastructure, cartographic feature, business features, and so on. In this case, I actually don't want a single thing. I'd like it to be this. And if I go in here, I can still do that, but I can change the symbol. In terms of shape. And under this people places, see if there's a symbol that I like for restaurants. So you get problems with like pizza would be too specific. This looks like could work for fast food, but maybe not all restaurants. So I actually don't like any of those. So I'm going to leave it as a single color for the case of this example, but you could play with this for a little bit longer and come up with something you like. In each case, this is showing us those different zones. They're now on a map. And we have pop-ups that automatically happen because there's a couple different layers showing here. When you click on it, it's saying 1 of 3. If we were to turn these off and then click on them, we would just get the 1 of 1. And so it's Wine Cafe in this particular case, Cattle Raisers Museum, and so on. So you created this, you can change the base map. So if we don't think that this sort of streets one is that good, we could add topographic base map, which has a little bit of elevation, some other stuff, has a little bit less point of interest stuff included in it. Anyway, there's a lot of different options. Again, depending on what your goals are. I really like dark base maps, but in this particular case, the way we visualize these points, this really wouldn't work that well. So we might need to pick some other ones. And you can see there's tons of great options that have been added here. That's a pretty nice one. That's a new one they've added. And you do have the ability actually to create your own custom base maps and upload them outside of this if you have your own account. So then if you go to save, call this We'll say our tags will be DCD. Oh, okay. You have to add at least one tag. And then we'll call it cultural district. Get our description, we save the map. Now we want to share it. We just go here, we can click everyone to make it public. And if you don't have it, if you aren't connected to the TCU organization, you won't have options like share it with just TCU or just members of specific groups. You can get a bit.ly link. It'll automatically upload to Facebook or Twitter with these links. Or you can embed it in your website. So choose the size that you want in terms of pixels, allow for responsive sizing, zoom control, so on. This is just the HTML. You just click copy, go into your let's see, brackets. And let's see if that actually worked. Yep. So I didn't do a very good job of sizing it, but nonetheless, we have a map in our web page that can go live just like that. So really, really easy. And once you've done, obviously, that's how you can go about sharing it. You also can create web apps automatically from here. There's helpful web app builders, ArcGIS dashboards. And so a lot of this is sort of designed to help you share this information in a way that's going to be compelling without having to have a lot of coding skill yourself. Right? Interactive legends, depending if you have a time slider, if you're looking at temporal data, that might be helpful, and so on. So lots of different kinds of apps it can be helpful, web app builders, different kinds of dashboards that you can create, and so on. So that's a pretty cool tool. But the elements that aren't that customizable do make this a little bit limited. And so if you want to get into a higher degree of customization, particularly as it relates to the base maps, Mapbox is another platform that you can use. And Mapbox, through its API, does integrate with the Tidy Census app in R, or package in R that we talked about a couple of weeks ago, such that you could create a map style in Mapbox and then import it using Tidy Census, style it using some of the other mapping packages, and create an online interactive map that you could put on a website in that way as well. So you sign up for a Mapbox account, the same as anything else online. If you need to use your TCU account, because it will set you up so that you can do things freely. And your lab this week is going to be creating your own map and style in Map Studio. To give you some examples of interesting ones, this is one that won some awards this year. I don't want to do that. I don't want to share it. But this is a base map style that you could then add your own layers to later on, but it was created by someone who works at Mapbox, inspired by Western, I think the Yellowstone show that has been popular on TV. And what it has is railway information, buildings, lines, water features, contour layers, and so on. And you're seeing different elements of it at different scales as you scroll in, as you scroll out, different degrees of detail are shown and perhaps are even symbolized differently. The colors actually could change, the thickness of lines can be altered at different scales so that the map makes sense. What cities qualify or make the map here. Just scroll out, no more cities at that scale. Interesting that they don't have states or country names show up at all on here. So if you like this sort of historic old map aesthetic, this is a pretty cool example of that. But it's a perfect example of something that was inspired by a piece of media that they then designed something to look like, which is literally your assignment this week, is to create something like that. I wanted to show one other example. This one's called Mineral. And what is, I think, most interesting about this particular example, as it's described by the person who designed it, is that it highlights underlying geologic and environmental land use characteristics from mountains and glaciers and forests, but doesn't show the roads. It doesn't show very much in terms of political boundaries. We have cities and we have etched lines that follow potentially like historic pathways, are not highways or anything like that. So these are the links between people that supersede political geography. And it's just very, very cool. So choices that they made. There's also things just in terms of symbolization. You've got, because of the background colors are so mixed, there's not any uniformity. So the labels themselves end up having to have the yellow halo behind them so they stay visible, kind of interesting cartographic techniques and so on. So what you're going to be doing this week for your lab is to create a map in Studio, and the details for which are uploaded already, and you can get started on it as you see. But the first thing you do is go to create a map in Studio. It'll open studio.mapbox.com. And then you could, if you've, like me, created someone's previously, you could then use the API to pull these out into other formats. But what you're going to do is go to New Style here. And they give you a couple different choices. For your assignment, though, you have to start with the blank one. You're starting from scratch. And really, if you want to make it truly your own, this is the way to do it. You would go to Customize Blank Map here. And then you start adding stuff. And under Components, the first thing you have to do is have some kind of base background, the foundation, the first layer that you'll put in. And so land, water, sky is what that is. And then you can start to customize it in a variety of different ways. Detailed land use. There's differences between land use and land cover only that you can make. You want a simple one, it takes those options out, and now it's just flat spaces. How do you show water? In this case, it's shadow. You can also do simple visualizations. Shadow can show depth depending on the color schemes that you're using. So there's lots of choices. Within managing colors, you can also add elements. Like if you want green space to look green, you can do that. And then if you allow land use and land cover as detailed, now we have green space marked with green. So lots of things that you can play with. Again, the instructions are available on the D2L page, and you can look through it there. There are, I should point out, a bunch of other online mapping platforms. These are just the two that are most easily accessible for getting started. And I think from a creative standpoint, Mapbox allows for greater creativity and expressiveness in how you set up a base map to start for your own purposes. ArcGIS Online probably has a lower barrier to entry if you want to start adding your own data and doing a lot with it. So there's pluses and minuses to both. neither of them are like open source, free, entirely free to use. They're both for-profit companies. So at some point, depending on how much use you get, how much traffic the map attracts, it may end up costing something to continue to host it if your map goes super viral. I will say, because Dr. Walker in our department has had several maps go viral, usually they're pretty good with letting you a viral map stay viral, whether you can afford it or not, because it's free advertising for the platform. So not something to let keep you up at night or prevent you from making something you think could be great. And with that, I think that's all you guys need to know for this week. I'll be around on Thursday to answer any questions that you might have. And I look forward to seeing all the cool stuff that you guys come up with.